Roger McCreary had an up and down rookie year. He led all Titans defenders in snap count, and he was one of only 2 Titans players with over 1,000 snaps. And he also played multiple positions, with a third of his snaps coming from the slot. So he was asked to do a difficult job, and he got a lot of valuable experience, but he did allow 7 touchdowns, and he ranked near the bottom of the league in most coverage metrics. So there's a lot of positive takeaways from his rookie season, but heading into year 2, he does need to take a step forward and become more efficient in coverage. Before we get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also follow us on all of our social medias. You can find the links to those in the description below. I've watched Roger McCreary for 2 years at Auburn and now 1 year in the NFL, and at this point I think he has a pretty clearly defined set of strengths and weaknesses. And obviously you want him to develop his game as much as possible, but I do think there are some athletic limitations that'll be hard to overcome, so a lot of his success is going to come down to usage. But starting with the positive, the number one thing that stood out to me watching McCreary's tape is his hand-eye coordination at the catch point. If you're a Titans fan, this play from week 15 probably comes to mind. End of the half, the Chargers are in striking distance, and Tennessee's playing a really soft quarters coverage. Herbert doesn't really have anything open, so he makes the correct choice to basically throw it away, but McCreary pulls off something I've only seen 3 or 4 times in my life. He jumps out of bounds and taps the ball to Josh Kalu before his feet hit the ground, and the Titans get an interception and keep LA from getting points before the half. But there's so many other examples of perfect timing and hand placement at the catch point. As long as he's in phase and under control, he's just such a talented defensive back who's really disruptive playing the ball. Right here, the Bengals are in 3rd and 7. They motion the tight end and send him on a drag route underneath. McCreary does a good job fighting through the traffic, and then he puts the outside hand on the back, really just to anchor himself to the receiver, and he rakes at the ball with his inside hand. Perfect timing to force the incompletion. On this play, he's covering CD Lamb running a 9 route. Really good job punching at the inside shoulder to disrupt the route and keep himself in phase, and then again he times his jump perfectly and swats the ball away. And then another one versus LA. This might be my favorite play from Roger McCreary's rookie year. It's 3rd down, and he's got Mike Williams running a curl route, and looking back to Lance Zierlein's scouting report of Roger McCreary, he says he plays the role of irritant and press man, which I think is the perfect way to put it. He doesn't have crazy long arms to just shut down releases and take a receiver out of the play, but as a press corner, he keeps the receiver from being comfortable. He's able to get underneath their frame and apply enough contact to slightly reroute them or disrupt the timing. So great job here of preventing Mike Williams from getting a clean break, and he forces him to cut off his route a yard short of the sticks. But then when he looks up to play the ball, McCreary gets his hand right in between the receiver's hands and breaks up the pass. And in general, McCreary was really successful last year in press coverage. He usually plays soft shoe press, where instead of jamming the receiver immediately at the snap, he gradually shuffles backwards, maintains some breathing room, and then makes contact once the receiver declares his release. And this is an effective technique for McCreary because he doesn't have elite recovery speed, so if he misses with his hands and the receiver gets a step on him, he'll give up some big plays. But when he's patient and he can stay on top of the route, he has the play strength and movement skills to play tight coverage. And then in zone coverage, he's really instinctive and quick to trigger downhill. He's a fairly reliable tackler crashing on underneath routes, and he has really good eye balance to read the quarterback while also accounting for the route distribution. And he didn't play much zone in college outside of cover 3, where he's just running into the deep third. So I was impressed at how quickly he adjusted to Tennessee's defensive scheme, which pretty much runs everything. So there's a lot that McCreary does at a high level, but he allowed 719 yards and 7 touchdowns last season. So there are still some significant weaknesses to his game that either he needs to fix or the Titans need to keep him out of those situations where he can be exploited. And his biggest issue by far is a lack of short area explosiveness and inability to mirror route breaks if he hasn't established contact, which resulted in McCreary being a borderline liability in off coverage. And I don't have access to press versus off splits, so I charted all of Roger McCreary's targets from last season, and I'm only looking at targets in single coverage, so I removed all the zone stuff because that's not what we're looking at. And in press coverage last year, McCreary allowed 0.2 EPA per target for a success rate of 47.6%, but in off coverage, he allowed 0.93 EPA per target and a 78% success rate. And if you aren't familiar with EPA, it's expected points added. So essentially, offenses were gaining about 1 point every time they targeted McCreary in off coverage. When he isn't able to make contact and use his hands to anticipate the route, he just allows so much separation at the break because he isn't naturally that explosive from a standstill, and he gets sloppy with his footwork when he's transitioning from a pedal. The way I think of defensive back techniques for getting out of your breaks is that there's basically two methods. You've got the T-step, where you use one foot to stop your backward momentum and accelerate off of that. So if you're breaking to the right, you use an instep with the left foot to stop the back pedal and propel yourself forward. And then there's the quick step or bicycle step, which is what McCreary uses most often, where you use the balls of your feet to stop the pedal and accelerate forward. One of these techniques isn't necessarily better than the other, but there are different skills involved, and situationally they each have certain advantages. So when you're operating on the vertical plane, let's say the receiver's running a curl or a hitch and you're square up with the receiver, I think a bicycle step makes the most sense because you don't have to turn your body and declare your hips in any direction, but it does require more steps, so the break isn't going to be as quick. But the T-step I think is most effective for diagonal breaks. If you're trying to cover a dig, it's a lot easier to plant one foot and close on the route. Using the quick step technique just takes too much time, and McCreary doesn't have elite speed to recover that extra separation. So I think the biggest thing for McCreary to improve as an off coverage corner is to develop his T-step so he can stick with horizontal breaks more consistently. And then his other main weakness is a lack of size and length, which eliminates his margin for error at the catch point. McCreary has the shortest arms of any cornerback in the NFL, and I know it seems trivial, especially during the draft when people are obsessing over a player's arm length, but it does make a real difference. The obvious example is this play from week 14, where if McCreary's arms were just an inch longer, this would have been an interception instead of a touchdown. But there were also a lot of plays from last season where McCreary was in good position, but he allowed a completion into a tight window. And a lot of these plays individually, you can't really criticize McCreary too much for. I mean, this throw from Aaron Rodgers is just incredible ball placement. I don't know how you defend that. He gave up this insane catch against the Chiefs on a scramble drill, but over time, a player like Tariq Woolen or Sauce Gardner is just going to have more success defending these tight window throws, and McCreary is always going to be at a disadvantage in that area. So I'm really interested to see how McCreary develops over the next couple years. I think he does have some athletic limitations that might prevent him from being an elite lockdown corner, but there are realistic areas for improvement. The biggest one is just tightening up his footwork at the top of the route, and he has the versatility to play outside or in the slot, which is incredibly valuable. I didn't really see any difference in his level of play based on where he was lined up. So at this point, it's looking like a successful pick. Getting a quality number 2 corner in the second round is absolutely worth the investment, but to reach his ceiling, he's going to have to continue to refine his technique because he doesn't have elite athletic traits to fall back on. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments any NFL players or teams that you'd like me to cover.